people come in, they think they got to spend $1,000 on gear right out the gate. And you really don't have to. I mean, even with a decent microphone or even with no microphone, you can take it and run it through that software like that. Even Descript has got their own version of it and really enhance your audio.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
Hey, podcaster. It's your host, Adam Adams, and we are joined with Chris Smith from Podtastic Audio. We're going to be talking a lot about the confidence that you need to be showing up with as you're podcasting. And his podcast is much of the content that he's focused on, has been focused on in the last couple hundred episodes, are how do you have really good audio content as well? Like the quality needs to sound great as well as the content needs to be good. So we're going to be talking to Chris mostly about this confidence and how do you have it. And we'll also talk a little bit about having just better audio quality, some of the mistakes that you might be making. So Chris, it's really good to have you as part of the show. I want to jump in and thinking about a new podcaster. Do you feel like most podcasters or some podcasters just come to it with a low amount of confidence, or why did we decide that we're talking about this today?
Well, first off, Adam, thank you so much for having me on the show. Again, I was on your show a while back. It's been a while since I've been on your show, but thank you once again for having me on here. And when it comes to, like, say, a new podcaster, especially, everybody starts off new. Everybody who creates a podcast, unless you're already a public speaker or already famous or already something going on, for most of us, I say indie hobby podcasters. Indie podcasters, meaning they're just independent people doing it at home, no budget, no studio, just themselves. We're all very nervous. I mean, can you imagine going on stage and giving a presentation if you've never given a presentation before and you are nervous as hell going up there? I mean, you'd be just like stuttering, and just getting all like, oh my gosh, the confidence level will be just super low. And I think what comes to podcasting is that a lot of indie podcasters, a lot of new podcasters lack the confidence they need to really make their content shine through, stand out above the rest. And you'll hear that, even if you don't see them, you will hear that in the audio. You'll hear that in their voice. You'll hear that when they talk. Even if they're doing an interview style show where they bring on a guest and ask them questions, maybe they're pre-written down or whatever, and you can kind of tell they maybe will rush through the guest bio or right at the beginning of the episode. Here we're with so-and-so, and they'll just rush through things, and maybe they'll trip over words, and they'll sound very, very flustered, very kind of a nervous sound. You'll hear that. And the guest will come on and they'll ask questions, and it may sound unnatural. It may sound more like a nervous job interview, like an HR department. It may sound like that, not an actual conversation. And I think people need to have real conversations and need to have organic conversations with each other for an audience to really kind of like gravitate towards that. That's what I'm thinking.
So I want to hear more on this. So you're talking about the confidence that we have and we're showing up as a podcaster with or without it. And you're also talking about the type of conversation that we have with our guest. And it feels like you're putting them together. It feels like you're saying if we have, for example, more confidence, then we're going to have a different type of conversation with that guest. Will you go more into detail on that? By what I want to hear is like, what is an example of this happening badly? And then what is an example of this happening more naturally and more confident so that the listener can see am I doing that? Do I need to change? How do I change?
Well, let's take the easy one, I guess, if it's a bad conversation, because most people who do guest interviews, I don't do a ton of guest interviews. I do a handful of them, but when I do a guest interview, I've already sought out the guest. I've already listened to all their stuff. I've already followed them. I kind of know what they're about. And I see, is this guest a good fit for my show? Does this guest have information that my audience would like to learn from or learn about and things like that? That's what I do. I know that when I was doing my other show, we were bringing on guests. We kind of did a little bit of that, but for the most part, it was like, hey, can I come on your show? Sure, come on. Let's just, we'll figure it out. And I know that a lot of podcasting experts will tell you have to do a pre-interview before you have a guest on your show. I mean, you can, if you have time to do that. Yeah, go right ahead. Have a full-blown, pre-interview, kind of like get to know each other kind of thing, have a vibe, because it's much easier to have a conversation with somebody you kind of already know and you already have a rapport with versus a complete stranger. I mean, total stranger. Most interviews are just complete strangers talking to each other. They have no idea, know nothing about them other than what they've seen like online, but they haven't known each other at all, really. So if you can't do that, maybe try to do a little bit of something before you press record. I mean, I've been on some shows where, I log on to Zoom and the next thing you know, we're already recording. I'm like, hello, is this thing even working? Or something like that. So,
yeah.
at least warm me up first, before you like go straight into the interview. So
they call that foreplay, I think.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. So if you're going to do that, at least make the guest feel as comfortable as possible. And I think as the podcast host in this situation, you're kind of like the captain of the show, or the captain of the interview. So you kind of have to have some confidence, like a leader would have confidence. You wouldn't follow a leader at a job who didn't know what he was doing, or it was so unprofessional, had a lack of confidence. Leaders have confidence. And if you're a podcast host, you're leading your show, have confidence. That's what I'm saying about that.
So let's look at it on the other side. So if we are nervous, what's going to happen to this interview, to that interview?
Well, I think what happens is that a guest who might actually be somewhat professional, let's say the guest knows what they're doing. They've been doing this for a while. It's not their first rodeo. The guest probably will kind of go with the flow. Most good guests could probably go with the flow. Whatever style the interview is, whether it's super scripted or very loose off the cuff or who knows what, a good guest can probably pivot and figure things out. A bad guest could probably be like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. They just go straight to their talking points. They just go straight to that. And that's all they do. They might have it written down in front of them, like a bullet points or something. But I think what happens is if the host is really nervous, the guest might feel a little uncertain, a little on edge, a little nervous. It's just like going on a first date with somebody. And if the person you're on a date with is completely nervous and totally fumbling everything, you kind of feel bad for them, but you kind of feel a little awkward too for just being there. Yeah.
So a bad guest might go straight to their talking points. And I think this is actually an important piece because everyone who listens now, the listener probably has had a guest where they have everything like pre-scripted. They come with an agenda. The guest comes with, I need to sell this. I need to sell this. People need to hear this call to action and this call to action. I've already got this answer, this response canned, ready to go. And if you come in and you're feeling nervous and you're not prepared and you don't know anything about that guest, that can allow some of these guests who are more scripted and are trying to sell something okay, it's time for me to take over because this person's lacking confidence. So I've got to show up as the person with confidence, and that's going to help me to get this. But I also feel like that kind of can derail a conversation to where it's just like supporting this other person's business versus really supporting the listener. And it sounds like you're agreeing. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, when you have a guest on the show, and I think it's very important for the listener to the show or any show really to understand this one thing is that when you bring guests on your show, what you're really doing is the guest goes onto your show because they want the audience of that show become part of their audience. That's the main reason why any guest goes on any show. That's it. So it's not to boost your audience. It's not to get you more listeners. It's to get some of your audience to follow them. And that's the main reason. So when you think about booking a guest, realize that that is their main goal. No matter what they tell you, no matter what they say, their main goal is to get exposure. And to get exposure is to go on other podcasts. So don't be thinking, oh, I'm bringing on such big name so-and-so guest on my show, and they're going to be so nice to share the episode and all the great stuff, and they don't. And you're like, oh man, what happened? They were so nice. What happened? But that's just one thing to really think about. So I highly recommend every podcaster that wants to use their podcast to leverage their own stuff, their own business, their own products, their own services to do solo episodes. Scrap the interviews. Just do solo.
Scrap the interviews.
That's what. Listen, if that's your goal,
Okay.
If your goal is to meet people and have conversations, then do interviews. But if your goal is to sell something that you created, then you need to sell it.
Let me share my thoughts on this, because I was just talking to a brand new client that's onboarding literally today. I got off the call just before this, but as I was talking to him, he was saying, "Hey, what do you think of interview episodes, and what do you think of solo episodes?" And my advice to him, and I just want to hear your rebuttal or your thoughts on it, was that when you have other people on your show, it helps to grow the audience faster, because you can slowly get into people that follow their audience, and some of them will share. I'm not saying that for sure you have this big name on, they're probably on 3 podcasts a day. How are they gonna share every episode that they're on? Why would they want to? And what is yours doing that's going to be special for them? But at the same time, by having other people on, especially if they're brand new, especially if this is the first podcast that they've been on. I remember for me, back in 2016, I was on a big name podcast. I guess it was like almost 10 years ago. It's crazy. But I was on this great podcast that I listened to it all the time. And I looked up to the host. And I respected the host. This is how I got my start in a business. And I finally was able to be recorded on their show. Well, for me, I was so proud of that exposure, that interview. It was my first time ever. I shared that everywhere I could. If I had Instagram and if TikTok was even around back then, I would have done it there too. But Facebook, and I reached out, I went on my email list. I blasted it because I'm like, look how cool I am. I got on this cool podcast. However, over time, now I get interviewed on more podcasts than maybe a couple a week or something, but I don't usually do anything about promotion. I don't, not anymore, because it's like, okay, well, my audience, my Facebook, they're just going to see that I'm on another podcast. Like, what's the point of just sharing that, especially if it's not unique or different than a different interview that I had. So I no longer share, but when I was new, I did. Anyway, going back to this with Brad, this guy that is a new client, I said, hey, here's why you do both. You want to do your own content, just like what you were saying, Chris. This shows that you are the expert, and it allows your listener to know that you are really good at what you're talking about, and they're more likely to be able to work with you. And you want to have some interviews. What I said to him is the lowest formula I would go with is 1 in 4, and that could be either direction. 3 interviews and 1 solo, or 3 solos and 1 interview, or you could go half and half, or 1/3 and 2/3, whatever, but no more than 1 in 4 being the opposite kind. And that's so that you can grow the audience and grow your own brand at the same time. Now, feel free to break that apart, or whatever you think.
I think it's actually, listen, I'm not poo-poo on interviews. Like I have a bunch on my show. I've done interviews, but I hand select the interviews. So I'm not just like taking on anybody. And I don't always have interviews. So there's a lot of solo content on there. There's probably more solo content than interview content on my channel.
Okay.
I haven't done the actual number breakdown yet. Well, if it's like 1 to 4 or 4 to 1, I don't even know. But I can tell you this much: I don't have interviews every single week. So that's the deal. But I think if you do have time to do a lot of interviews, and I think, well, when I did the other show, we had more time because of COVID and all that kind of stuff. It was easier to book interviews. It was easier to have guests and to do all that kind of stuff because everybody was pretty much available for the most part, really. I think things now are a little trickier to get interviews locked in. So that's why I'm a little more selective with my interviews. Also, the
Wait,
fact.
say that again. And the why behind this. Because what I thought I heard was interviews are hard to get locked in.
They can
What
be.
are you saying there? What's the problem?
The problem is that everybody is that, well, in the circles that I've ran with,
Okay.
in the interviews we've done, and especially with my other show, when we had 3 people he had to coordinate with. Coordinate schedule with 3 people.
Oh,
It's very tricky, right? So that's the experience that I'm dealing with here. That was where our old show, the interviews, we kept booking and rebooking them or canceling them or whatever, just because trying to line up 3 schedules, especially when everybody's got a different time zone or different schedule or different thing going on, it makes it very difficult. You think you got one locked in, okay, great, and then something happens. You have to
Here's
bump
what
it.
I think I'm hearing. If you're by yourself, you can do it at midnight. You can do it at 12:03. You could do it whenever you want. Whenever you have time, you could just log in, push record, and go. When you just have one other person, just even one other person, you just have to make sure that schedules line up. And sometimes people get sick. Sometimes people forget. And it can feel frustrating as a podcaster to jump on and be like, where's my person supposed to be? We're supposed to be recording 5 minutes ago. So you're saying essentially like the interviews are good and you do interviews, maybe not every single week, but you do them. But just acknowledging that sometimes they can be challenging, and even more, it sounds like, when you have 3 or more schedules. Like if you have a co-host, or if you're trying to do a panel discussion with like 3 or 4 other people, then it's like it makes everything else amplified how challenging it can be to get the multiple schedules.
I think it's right? I think it's more challenging now. The further we get out of COVID, I mean, we're pretty well away from it now. People are driving, they're back to work, they're doing things, they're not in house as much anymore like they were. So, not saying you should be like, doing a podcast while you're supposed to be at work, but it's less easier now to pull that off. I think the experience I've seen, but maybe it's different for you, maybe it's different for other people, but so that's why I think like interviews are great, but I don't think you should bank your entire podcast on having interviews.
Yeah.
Some people do, and I hear what people do. I know you do this too, is that people like bank a bunch of like pre-interviews in the can, like, they'll record a bunch or record a bunch of episodes and like, bank like a few months or a month's worth of episodes, which is a good idea to do. I'm a little relaxed on that. The times I've done that is when I'm going out of town or on vacation. I'll do like 3 weeks worth or whatever for this vacation so it's covered. Then I'm back up to 0. I guess I have to redo it all over again. But that's a good idea. But I think that doesn't work if you're doing a news show. It doesn't work if you're doing up to the minute type stuff. It doesn't work at all. So if you're doing, I know a lot of people do interviews. They'll have like, I know one podcaster said he had like 50 guest interviews saved in the can up to the point I talked. I'm like, 50?
Well, goodness. If he's doing one a week, that's a year's worth of content.
But I think the thing was he kept doing more and more and more. So it's like, it's what he did was to catch up with that is he started releasing 2 episodes a week just to kind of, because what happens with a guest, hey, I interviewed you like a year ago. When's my episode at? They're like, well, dude, I got backed up. I'll get you in like, next November or something like that. And the guest's like, well, why would the guest share at that point? Because they may forget all about it unless you actually tell them the episode's out, which is a good idea. Cause I know shows, like I was on a show a while ago and
do you do that on your show? If you have a guest, do you let them know?
100%. I will not only tag them in every social that I can find them on, I also will send them a nice little email saying, thank you for being on the show. Here's the link to the episode. And I send my website link, which has like a generic link for everything on it. Not just an Apple or Spotify, because you don't know where people listen. They can listen anywhere. So I have to have that. My website has all that there. So I send that link, which they can listen anywhere there. And then I send a nice little thing. Hey, if you could you give me an Apple review? If you could, be nice about it. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But I'll do that with every single guest that I'm on. And I would hope that a show that I'm on would let me know, hint, Adam, I will let me know that the episode's out so I can share it and promote it. Because I'm one of those people that do love to share and listen back and just see what you did with the episode and like share it out and things like that. Because what that also does, it also kind of like helps boost my brand too a little bit, because It shows my visibility on other shows. Hopefully, gets you booked on more shows, builds your network, things like that.
Yeah. And just so you know, we are only a week or 2 or 3 out. So within 2 weeks, probably you'll already hear from us. Hey, I want to ask you.
Yeah.
So we're talking about confidence versus being nervous as a host. And my thought is, a lot of times people say, fake it until you make it. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts? If we are a podcaster, but we're generally, like, we actually are nervous. We actually don't want to mess up. We've learned, I guess, from school that we have to be perfect. We need to get straight A's, but like, we're not that comfortable just like winging it, something or jumping.
Right.
So the question is, like, for a person who's listening who is literally nervous, do you suggest that they fake it till they make it? And if so, how does he or she do that?
Well, this is the beauty of podcasting, is that it's not live. Don't do live. You're going to screw that up so bad, you wouldn't believe how bad you're going to screw that up. And I would suggest not even doing interviews at first, because if you're nervous and you're meeting someone for the first time and you're doing a video screen thing like this right here, and can you imagine how nervous you'd be your first time, how you'd screw things up so badly? Let me do that question again. I'm sorry I screwed that up, and fumbling. Oh my gosh. So I suggest doing an audio only solo episode and edit the hell out of the thing. Just go through there, and you're going to screw it up, and just go through and edit all those mistakes. You can spend time editing the thing. You can edit everything out. Nothing is permanent. That's the thing about podcasting. It's not live. Unless you want to do a live thing, but I wouldn't recommend doing live until you're really, really good, until you really narrow down your confidence. Your confidence level has to be like a 10 if you're going to do like live streaming type stuff.
Yeah.
So that's my advice. Edit.
I did a lot of live podcasts. I sold a podcast back 6 years ago. And that podcast, I would record most of the episodes live on Facebook. And yeah, the first few times it was absolutely scary. I mean, it was, and it feels like you can't even log in fast enough. You're like, oh, I'm so sorry, and so you kind of get that fumble feeling. With all that said, there is something about going live and that teaches you something. Finally, the other thing that came into my head while we were talking about this is, when I go live, I'm going to mess up at some point on this episode. And I would, obviously mess up probably if it was live too, or more likely, because I'd be even more nervous. But with that in mind, when you are going live and you mess up, this is all I do. And to my editor, I'm not actually messing up. Do not edit this out. This is part of the podcast. But it's just, you get to a place and you're like, oh crap, let me do that again. Okay. You ready, Chris? Let's go. 3, 2, 1. And then you go back in and you jump, and you can just cut that out. So in the live, the person watching Facebook Live or wherever it is, YouTube Live, they're going to hear the mistake. But you're also going to be able to talk to you or I don't know, Chris, do you edit your own? I think you do. Hey, my friend, as you know, this episode is sponsored by my company, growyourshow.com. We want you to be able to have the best tools at your disposal without costing you a whole arm and a leg. So right now you can get a free list of vetted equipment that, like mics, mixers, webcams, sound treatment, editing software, everything that you need. I created the whole PDF with direct purchase links just to save you time and money, to help it be more convenient for you. So this free PDF will help you skip all the guesswork. If it's on there, it's vetted and approved by yours truly. And if it's not on there, it's probably not worth the money. So go ahead and get yours at growyourshow.com/PDF. Let's get back into the show.
Yeah, I do my own editing. I haven't dabbled too much with video editing. I just let Riverside do all that stuff, the AI stuff. But yeah, I actually love doing the editing stuff. I edit for clients too. Actually, it's like art, to me. It's like a fun artistic thing, like the audio editing side of things. But that's why I enjoy doing. I'm different, I guess.
Yeah, I did a lot of my first 300 episodes of my first podcast, and the second 300 of that podcast I let someone else do. And it's hard for me to share this because, to my listener, Chris has a company that edits podcasts. Chris specifically edits for his clients. For me, my company, my team, I have an editing team, video editing, audio editing, and show note writing team that they title it and everything. I mean, we want the business. So give us the business. You don't want to edit your own? Cool, we got you. But at the same time, in the same breath, Chris, it sounds like you would agree with this. When you record your podcast and you have to be the one to edit it, you will hear how many times you say or You will hear how many times you give a really long-winded question, or you essentially answer the question for your guest. You might say yes to this, but I was just wondering, or something that I still do is I'll have a really long question. Like, instead of just saying, where did you grow up? I'm like, so I was wondering where you grew up, because the listener might be wondering where you grew up. So where did you grow up? Something like that. And I feel like if you are editing your own, you can hear that. You'll get disgusted. You'll be like, I can't believe I just asked like a question that could have been 7 seconds. I did it in like 3 minutes. So I'm wondering, so this is another one of those 3-minute questions, Chris.
Right. Go on.
Are you ready? What are your thoughts? Like, do you feel like you should you should edit some of your own just to learn how to fix your issues?
I think you should. There's a couple of reasons why. One is because you become very self-aware. You become self-aware of all your nuances, all your things, like all your deep breaths, like, oh, I am like sucking into the microphone like it's a snorkel, or some people like that. And the second thing really is that in the event that the person or team you're using to edit your own show just closes shop or raises their rates beyond your price point or anything like that, you have to have some basic skills to be able to put a show together if you have a deadline, especially if you're at a point where you have sponsors.
Yeah.
If you're at a place you have sponsors or ads and they're requesting an episode next week and your editing team just like closed down and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what to do with it. I don't even know, have some basic editing skills, just basics if you have to, just as like, keep you kind of fresh, just in case something goes wrong. It's like with anything really in life, always have a backup plan. And your backup plan should be the knowledge, being able to like, at least put an episode together. I mean, it's not that hard. It's not rocket science,
When you edit, you said you use Riverside AI, that's artificial intelligence.
That's for when I do the interviews, because Riverside is a sponsor of mine. It makes sense to use their product. So I use Riverside for my interviews. And what the great thing about Riverside, not be a big plug here, is that it does really high quality 4K video and separate wave file tracks all in the studio. And in the studio itself, you can use AI to edit out the video, just take out like the ums and basic things like that, all within the video, make it 4K, put captions on there if you want to, and you can save the thing to your computer. And then you can take that. It even gives you like descriptions or ideas for titles for YouTube, right? So that's what I do with that when it comes to video stuff. I get the audio files and I'll edit them the way I normally edit my regular audio files, which is using Audacity. Now, I love Audacity. Audacity's free. People like poo-poo on it because it's free or whatever, but it's quite powerful. It is highly recommended, and it does a lot of cool advanced things, and it's totally free to use. So I love using Audacity for audio editing.
So you go to Riverside, you might cut out a few ums or uhs, and you have a really high quality video. Is that the audio that you use when you do your audio editing, so that the ums and uhs are already taken out?
No, I'll take the raw file and get those into Audacity. That way I can tweak them the way I want. I do have a few other tools I use that I've had to kind of like pick up because of my clients. I was editing for them. And you know that when you're doing a job, especially getting paid by the job, not the hour, like I charge my clients by the job, the faster you can do the job, the more money you make because you're getting it done quicker. So I found tools that kind of like speed the process up.
Would you share some of those with the listener?
The one I discovered, I used to use Descript. Descript is a full-blown editor. A lot of podcasters use Descript because you can edit like a text document with like got the words, audio, video, you got studio set. They have a lot of cool features, but I was paying for them and I was using them. And then I don't think it wasn't a price issue. It was like they changed the layout issue on the script. Every time I log in, it was like, here's a new update and everything's different. Every single time I log in, I'm like, what the hell, man? I'm trying to figure out I got a few minutes to put this thing together, and you changed all the icons, you changed everything around. I can't find nothing. I'm trying to figure this thing out. And then I was running some stuff to my clients that I was using the script for, and they're like, it kind of sounds a little too robotic. It sounds like the editing is a little too choppy. And I'm like, okay, maybe I won't use that too much. And then I was like, well, if I'm not using it, then why do I even pay for it? So that I just got rid of it, And then I was on AppSumo, AppSumo is a storefront that actually provides digital software at discounts for people. And they had a new one that popped up called Resound. And that's the one I use today. It's called Resound. And basically what you do is it's very similar to the script, but it's more of a watered down basic version. And you can even edit the wave. It shows it in like a wave file versus a text file. So you're seeing a wave file like you would in any wave editor. And so you can edit out ums and stuff that way. And you even can choose to keep them or get rid of them or edit more, edit less. And it does a really good job. So I've been using that for that part of it all. And that's one tool. And I use a different tool I use to get the transcript. I use Transcript LOL. I found another one. Thank you, AppSumo. And that one allows me to drop my audio file or video file, whatever you have, drop it in there. You can get a full-blown transcript. It's like 99% accurate, a full-on transcript. Take the transcript, and then I use ChatGPT to handle all the show notes and description and the chapter markers and all that stuff. So the key is if you want to use ChatGPT for that, the key is you got to get a transcript first and drop it in there. I've been unsuccessful to really put in an MP3 file in there and get a transcript directly. I'm sure there's workarounds, but I haven't had a chance. I've had really good luck with that. But I'll use transcript. I'll use transcript LOL to get the actual transcript of the audio, the file. Drop that into ChatGPT. I say, hey, give me the chapter markers, give me the show notes, give me the descriptions, and then I say, well, I'll tell you who it's for. You really can fine tune it in ChatGPT. So I'll fine tune it the way I want, and then I'll use those for all the information that goes into a podcast, the description, all that stuff. And that's what I do for clients. I do that for myself. And like I said earlier, man, it's just like when you're charging for the job, the quicker you can get this stuff done, the more money you're going to make. Don't tell the clients that because they're going to be like, figure out do it themselves.
All right. If you're a client, just stop listening. No, I got a question, Chris. So I like that you use ChatGPT, and you said that you get the chapter markers, the show notes, the description, and I think, did you say the title?
Of course. Yeah. That's
what
they
want. Title for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, I get examples of title. I'll fine tune the titles. I'll get I said, give me 5 examples. And then I'll ask it, what do you think is the best of these 5? And it'll tell me that. And it'll tell me why. And I'll say, that's good. Okay, let's use that.
Cool. With all of this in mind, I am very curious. I'll tell you how long it takes me. If I'm going to do all my own editing for a normal podcast that, let's call it 45 minutes, it will end up taking me like 10 to 12 hours. Right? So it's like 12 times.
Except for one?
For one. Without using any AI. My team now uses some AI, but it still takes a ton of hours because we have separate teams for show notes, writing, for titling, we also create all the promotional images. So for example, when this comes out, you'll get like all these different promo images and videos.
Thank you so much. I'll share that for sure. Definitely.
Perfect. So with that in mind, I'm curious because it took me 12 and now it takes us not a little more than half that still. With you, how long did it used to take you to edit like your client's podcast? And that now that you're using these AI tools and other tools, how long does it take you now? So I guess how much are you saving in time?
Okay, well, let me see. I think I usually I charge. I'm not gonna tell you my prices, but I'm gonna tell you what I do. And I charge for the recording. I record it live for them. Like I record this live because they aren't very tech savvy. Let's just say, older people, they're not very tech. They're always kind of busy. They own a mega company. They're not really, they'll record because I schedule recording for them, and they'll actually show up in the record like we're doing right now, and I'll record everything on my end. That's how I do it. So, and it's audio only, so no video required. So that kind of removes that side of it all. So I get the recording, then I'll go to work on it audio wise, and then I'll go on to work on show notes, that kind of stuff. Probably, I think it was probably taking me somewhere around an hour for the recording, and then editing side of it all. Probably depends how many guests they had on. Sometimes I'll do like 4 or 5 guests at a time. Some 6 guests I've had, and you got to edit each track individually. It takes a while, but maybe 4.5, 4 or 5 hours, maybe. It depends, just for the editing side. Now, with all these other tools I've been...
Does that include, though, writing the show notes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the thing with the show notes is trying to figure out what the show notes were about was before AI, I was just trying to figure out what they talk about 10 different things. Like, what am I supposed to really title this thing, because it's so hard to really, because they kind of go off different tangents. They talk about sports, talk about business, they talk about this. So then it's like, what do I title this thing, This all before AI. I was really struggling with that. It took a long time figuring that. So I would ask them at the end of the call. I would say, hey, man, what do you want to call this episode? Like, what do you want to call this thing? Or at least give me keywords or something like that. And they would kind of give me some ideas. Okay, that sounds good. But now, well, back then it was like 4 or 5 hours maybe with all of that. And the show notes were probably a little more generic, a little more like maybe 2 sentences, 5 sentences, kind of a thing.
Okay.
Before AI got involved. Because AI loves to write, as it does. But and the titles were kind of a little more simplified, really. But now, I think hour to record, even if it doesn't take an hour, I was charged an hour for the recording. Even they use like the last episode we just did this week, we did a recording, and it was only like 30 minutes. So it all depends. But I charge the same rate. I charge them for the hour. So whether you want to do it for 15 minutes or an hour, it's up to you. But I mean, it's probably your best interest to go the full hour. But anyways, so I think I did the episode. I got that episode out literally, I kid you not, maybe an hour and a half later at the most to do the episode after I've already recorded it.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Love it. All right. Interesting. So it doesn't take you so long.
And I've done it for so long. I've done so many episodes, 200 episodes on this show and almost 200 episodes on the other show. And then the client's episode, I forget how many episodes, maybe 100 on them. I don't even know. But practice does make perfect. So the more reps you put in, was just like anything, more reps you put in, the easier it becomes, the quicker you become, the better you become at doing it quickly. Everything is. And that's why I got so frustrated with the script, because they kept on changing all the buttons all around. And I'm like, where is everything? Time is money. The time, So, I mean, we with any new software we use, no matter what it is, whether it's a video thing or audio thing, there is a learning curve to everything we touch digitally. And you have to set aside time, if you have it, to learn the thing you're going to use. And if you're really busy and you're constantly busy, you barely got time to just do the interview, that's all you have time to do, just the interview, then by all means, have another team do it for you, because time is money.
Yeah. Well, of course, if it was taking me, 2 days, 2 shifts, so I'd record it on a Wednesday, and then I would be editing it all day on Friday, all day, Thursday and Friday, and then get it to be uploaded for the following Wednesday. It was frustrating, and I had a business to run, and I wanted to be worth, a couple $100 at least every hour. And I was sitting here editing a podcast that took me like 12 hours to edit. And I did the math on that, right. And that was like a couple grand that I was losing out on. I'm like, yeah, let me find someone who can edit this for a couple $100 so that I don't have to waste 2,000. So anyway, that was my mindset. Now I want to ask you, because you have a lot of experience with this, some ways for us to look and sound more professional, better microphones or equipment that the listener might want to have in mind as they improve.
It all depends on people's budgets. I mean, if they've got $1 million budget, then by all means, buy a full-on studio and make it like a full-on production thing. Like make it look like the news or something like that. The desk and backdrop and everything. If you got the budget for that, if you have a very simple budget, very low budget, I would just start with audio only. And I like audio over video when it comes to podcasting stuff. I think if your podcast does not have to show visuals, if you don't have to show something, then why do you need to do video? I guess maybe for social aspects of things. The video is very easy to share on social. It makes great sharing on social, video headshots and like the TikTok style posts and Instagram reel style posts. That's why I like using Riverside, because it'll make those little posts for you, which is great. But if you don't need the video side of things, don't do video. So I would start off with probably a Samsung Q2U microphone and a computer, which you already have. Most people have computers, I would hope. So that's really all you really need. If you want to do interviews, probably get some headphones. You don't need headphones. You can use these like Apple AirBuds. I've used those, and just so that you can hear your guest and your guest can hear you, and there's no what do you call it, loop back, like any kind of loop back feedback sound going back and forth. That's all that's really for. And a decent camera. Most laptops have decent cameras for the most part. If you're gonna do video type stuff, if that's your thing. But all you really need is a Samsung Q2. In fact, when I was doing my client's show, and they were using, I kid you not, they were using those little like operator headsets, like telephone things that you plug into the computer. Those tiny little like things you use for conference calls or whatever. And they're doing the podcast with that. And with AI tools, I can clean that stuff up. And I got a few things, to make it sound decent. But I'm like, dude, you know what? This would be so much easier if they had a freaking microphone. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna buy them a Samsung Q2U and ship it to their office. And sure enough, I did that, and it went from it sounded like a 3 to a 10, just like that. And that's all it takes. And the microphone is like $60-$70, maybe Amazon Prime, free shipping. Boom, there you go. And so, and I made the money back, in the next episode. So it's like, whatever, who cares? And so, just make it sound easier. And it made it easier for me when I edit their show, so it doesn't sound like crap. I can make it sound way better. And they loved it so much that they bought a second microphone for one of their co-hosts or whatever. But a Samsung Q2 is great. If you want to go a little more advanced, actually, the next step up, if you want to do a little more, like the microphone I'm using right now is the Rode PodMic. It's the PodMic Original. I also have the PodMic USB. It's over there somewhere. I don't really use it that much, but I bought it because I wanted it. And the elevated version of this microphone, all it really means is that you can do both USB directly to a computer, and you can plug it into a console like this Rodecaster Pro I have right now. But the cool thing about the Rode PodMic is that if you've ever experienced the new Rodecasters, the Rodecaster Duo and the Rodecaster 2, like the one I have right now, they've got really good preamps and really good sound processing built right into the device. Like, it is unbelievable how good this thing is. The way it sounds, the way it processes sound live. The Rode PodMic, the USB version, has all that tech built into the microphone. And it's only $200. Double the price of this one, but it's so robust. You can do so many cool things. You can make it sound just like a Rodecaster with just a microphone and a USB plug into your computer. It can sound that good. And it's $200. So I highly recommend getting that. I know Shure's got some microphones too that do kind of the same thing. And everybody's got their microphones that's kind of the same things. I like Rode stuff. I've been using Rode stuff for a while. So that's where I land. I like the Rode PodMics. They're not very much. They sound great. I mean, literally, this microphone is $99. For the price of like one Shure SM7B microphone, you can get like 4 of these and have 4 friends sitting around doing a podcast together. So that's kind of what I look at. It's like, if you have multiple people in the same room.
And for most people who have the MB7, which is a great mic, you have to know more about audio engineering than just a regular person. Like, to get the SM7B,
right.
The SM7B working for $400, you have to understand how to use a cloud lifter or what interface to go. And so having something that, like you're suggesting, the Rodecaster, the PodMic, that is $200, that plugs right into your computer, it's going to sound great without you having to be an audio engineer or having to find ways of having preamps and everything else.
It's very, very flexible microphone because you can still hook it up to a console. You can still hook it up to an interface. If you want to go that route, you can still do that. But if you want to just use it with just a laptop, you can plug it in there and it opens up this, I think it's like Rode. There's a Rode app or something on it that you download to your computer, and it's got like all little settings and stuff. It looks very similar to a Rodecaster on the screen on your computer, like a Rodecaster Pro. It looks like it on the screen with the knobs and all the stuff and different settings. And you can really fine tune it, tweak it. And it's supposed to save the settings into the microphone once all said and done. So you can take that microphone and plug it into a different computer, and it should save all the settings. It should be all the same every time you use it. I've only played with the USB side of it like once or twice in a different room, just played around, did an episode with it. And but when I seen it, it sounded really good. It sounded like this console I'm using right now. It's a Rodecaster Pro 2, set on the pod mic setting, set on the broadcaster mode. And it literally sounded just like that with just a computer. So I was like, this is pretty cool. Like if somebody wants to sound great and they don't want to buy a console and they're just doing interviews via Zoom or wherever, then I suggest getting the Rode Pod Mic USB. It's $200.
So Chris uses a pod mic that's about $100. He has a boom arm that's probably another $100. And then he has a Rodecaster Pro 2 that's probably, I don't remember, $600 or $700.
I think it was something like that. Yeah. They have a new one called the Duo now. It's about $500. They didn't have it when I bought this one. That one wasn't available yet. So I just bought this one. But I never had the original Rodecaster. I had an old audio interface. It was designed for musicians and like plugging in like guitars, things like that. And so I had that for a while. And then I'm going to pull the trigger. When the new one got announced, I'm going to pull the trigger on it and get the new one when it came out. And I've loved it. People have issues with theirs and stuff, but I haven't had any really issues with mine. Like it works. It sounds great. And I don't even use all the features to think. I mean, this thing literally, I told somebody it's like a radio station in a box. Like everything a radio station can do, you can do with this thing. Like music, sound effects, jingles, callers, whatever you want to do. And it all sounds great. You can do with this Rodecaster Pro 2. It's customizable. It's got lights. It's got blinky lights. You can change the colors on the thing. You can stream with it. You can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. All I use it for is just to record a single podcast.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
Chris, I appreciate you with all the audio, the ideas with audio, because good audio is super important for a strong podcast. Because there's a lot of people that if you just don't sound good, they're going to find a podcast where it's easier for them to hear it and to listen and to stay with it and not be distracted by all the echoing or whatever.
Right. It's what if the audio becomes distracting of the content, that's when you have a problem.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I keep hearing that clicking bark sound at the entire time, the episode's going on, and I can't unhear it. Now here's that.
Yeah. So for the listener, Chris has shared 3 levels of price points for you. At the lowest level, he was talking about the Samson Q2U, which you can find on our website. It's growyourshow.com/PDF, and you can download a PDF that has clickable links. And one of those goes to the Samson Q2U. That's the lowest cost. It's about $70, give or take, $69. Or the next step up, what I'm hearing from Chris is the Podcaster, the Rodecast pod mic.
Pod mic.
I couldn't get it.
I know
because
it's confusing.
I'm nervous.
Oh no!
Just a great interview.
Hey, have some confidence, man.
Okay, here it comes. Confidence. Yeah, with the pod mic, you could get the one that has 2 levels, so it can be a USB for $200, or it has an XLR in the back as well, right, Chris?
Yeah, it does, and it also has. I've got to mention this too. It also has a plug for your headphones. The plug right into the microphone, so you can monitor yourself live directly off the microphone. The Samsung Q2U also does that too. The Rodecaster also has that feature. Also, just be aware of that. So it's very simple to do that way too. Yeah,
perfect. So level 1, $70. Level 2, $200, and then or you can get where you have all of the things, a $100-ish pod mic, as well as a $700-ish Rodecaster plus whatever else. So that's kind of like the next step up. But be thinking about that. If you want to sound good, do you want any of those 3 will sound good. It's just like, what is your budget? Is that right?
Right. And also too, with editing now, in the world of AI we live in today, there are so many AI tools to enhance audio. There's one that I use called Adobe Podcast Enhance. And I mainly use it for people that I have on as guests, or my clients who have guests or whatever, that sound like they came in on a phone call or something like that, right? Yeah. And it'll take that audio. Now, it's not perfect, but it'll take that audio and do a fairly decent job of making it sound like it came out of a microphone. It gave it a little more depth to the audio, a little more bass to the audio. It's not perfect, but it takes away that echo, like phone call sound.
Yeah.
So I use
Glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and I think that's one good thing to think about because people come in and they think they got to spend $1,000 on gear right out the gate, and you really don't have to. I mean, even with a decent microphone or even with no microphone, you can take it and run it through that software like that. Even Descript has got their own version of it, and really enhance your audio. But the problem is, it's easier to start off good with good audio and continue that way with your editing versus take garbage and try to like fluff it up. I guess it's like putting lipstick on a pig. You have to.
So to you who's listening, we talked about confidence versus being nervous. We talked about should you fake it till you make it. We talked about if you have a bad guest, what's going to happen. The use of Riverside AI, also other tools and tips and tricks, especially for recording and sounding good. A few different levels that you can. And our next episode that's already queued up is going to be a great episode for you as well. So don't go away. You don't have to even leave. The next episode is ready for you and you'll get more great content. I'll see you there.
This is serious. Don't go. Now that you've gotten whatever value that you feel that you got, the actionable takeaways, you need to implement the stuff that you learned. If you remember me talking about bird church once, and they learn how to fly, and then they walk home, I don't want you to walk home. I want you to fly home. So take the steps, take the actionable steps for your benefit so that you can become a better podcaster. That's the only thing that I ask of you. And I'll see you for more actionable tips on the very next episode.